morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinars on a step-by-step guide on how to craft or how to reveal a compelling story. Now, in previous webinars, I've spoken about the importance of story. I've spoken about if it doesn't add to the story, it detracts from the story. I've spoken about having a signature story, that one that you're known by. And I've also spoken about recent stories trump 10-year-old stories. And I've had a few inquiries about that's nice, but what's a method for unraveling a story, or what's a method for revealing a story from the audience's perspective? So that's what I'm going to share with you today. A model that I use, I was taught 17 years ago by Colin James, a model for step by step to go through the story to make it relevant about and for the audience. So welcome everyone. Let me share my screen. All right. Crafting compelling stories, a step-by-step guide. Really important that we become proficient at storytelling. One of the main reasons is people don't remember what you've said. They remember how you make them feel in the gut. This is a visceral response. And one of the ways to have an impact viscerally is by telling a story that resonates with the people. So this is my methodology, step by step, and I'll give you some examples. First of all, please ask questions as you go. I've got the keeping an eye on the chat or the question box, just making sure that the chat box is open. And I've opened, everyone can message in the chat. Participate, take notes, and think if you're going to change your methodology for your storytelling as we move forward. Also, I'm recording this so you can review any of this should you need to. So, first thing, storytelling is not just about telling stories. It's about illustrating a point. So the first thing in my process, step one, is make a point. So today I want to talk to you about the importance of staying hydrated, drinking 3 litres of water when you're working in the Pilbara in Australia. Yeah. I want to talk to you about the importance of staying hydrated. You need 3 litres of water. That's the point. So what's the point that you want people to walk away with? The 3 litres of water, they're probably not going to remember all of that, but you'll have a handout sheet or you'll have a PowerPoint that you can refer to. The next step is tell a story. Tell the story where someone failed to be hydrated. It may be your own story. It may be a colleague of yours that you ended up having to take to emergency or hospital or administer first aid because of heat stroke, because of lack of water, and how it was a near miss. Then step 3, reiterate the point. So therefore, I'm encouraging you to drink at least 3 litres of water if the temperature is over 40 degrees, as it is often in the Pilbara and the Kimberley. Yep. We all know about 2 litres of water per day as a normal amount to consume, but in the Pilbara, you need to increase that to 3 litres of water a day. So I've done the point, your data, your statistic, your key message. I then told the story that illustrates, that carries the message. Then reiterate the point. And here's the most important part of the storytelling model. And that is step 4, highlight the benefit or the value to you, the listener, to your audience, to your team. Yep. Because I know that you don't want any colleagues. I know that you don't want to cause any stress, any worry to your wife, to your family, to your friends, because you've been admitted to hospital with heat stroke. I know that you want all of your fellow workers to come home safe and sound at the end of each shift. Yeah. So if you don't want to be affected by dehydration, put yourself at risk of heat stroke. If you want to make sure you stay fit and healthy on the job, please drink 3 litres of water a day. So it's the benefit to the audience, to your clients, to your team that makes a big impact. If you make a point and you tell a story and then you make a point, and I don't care, you've got the wrong point and the wrong story for that audience. If you tell a story and there's no point, then once again, you're telling the wrong story for the wrong audience. And you're probably just a comedian or an entertainer. You're just telling stories. And storytelling is wonderful. But generally in the arena of public speaking, training, workshops, we want people to walk away with 2 or 3 key points. What stories can we use to carry those 2 or 3 key points? What stories? So this is the model put together, and it is cyclical. So it starts off with you make a point. You tell a story to illustrate the point. You come back, you reiterate the point. And most importantly, you highlight the benefit for the people in the room. Tell a story with no point, you're probably a stand-up comedian. Tell a story with a powerful point, and I don't care, your audience doesn't care, you've got the wrong story, the wrong point for that audience. All right, let me give you a few examples. So one of my key points, I was in Port Hedland yesterday and I was talking about the importance of preparation. Walk 30 moons in your enemy's moccasins, do an audience audit, be so well prepared that no matter what happens, the show goes on. Are you prepared for the presentation you've got coming up next week? Really important that you are prepared. Preparation is key to public speaking. About 6 months ago, I got invited to fly up to one of the mine sites here in Western Australia. And they booked me 3 months in advance. They flew me a couple of hours, very expensive flights in the Pilbara. They gave me a hire car. I drove about an hour to the mine site. This is the day before, had a nice meal, slept well. Next morning at 6 a.m., I'm setting up. 12 people walk in the room, 7 a.m. start, and the superintendent comes in and he says, Peter, are you aware we have a shutdown of the power plant here at this mine site? You have no power. You have no power. Are you aware of this? So what do? I've got 12 people in the room. I'm about to run a workshop. Lights go off, no power. Do I drive back to the airport, fly back to Perth and reschedule? No, be so well prepared that the show goes on. Luckily, the sun was rising. I could lift the blinds. I had flip charts and I had marker pens, so I could do everything on the flip charts and the whiteboard. And about 11 a.m., they had done the scheduled shutdown, changeover of the power plant. Power was restored and I was able to continue on. So really important that we do our preparation. I think preparation is key in public speaking. What would you do if something went wrong? How would you handle the power going out? What would you do if more people turned up than you expected? If you want to be successful, if you want to look calm while under fire, because stuff does happen, please be so well prepared that no matter what happens, power goes out, less time, the GM comes in and speaks for an hour and your 4 hours is now 3 hours. It doesn't matter because you are so well prepared that you can deliver this workshop under all circumstances. Story model. I've spoken a lot about stories in the past. This is just a practical 4-step process to go through. And I always say head first. So we make the point, heart second. So the story goes to the heart, the overcoming adversity, the success despite all odds, the trauma. What are we going to do? We've got no power. How are we going to handle this? Oh, no. And then back to the head, the point. But it's the visceral, it's the heart, it's the story that we remember. But more importantly, if I just tell a wonderful story and you don't care, then I'm not going to have impact. So step 4 is putting the point and the story on you, the relevance for you and how I can help you. Let me share with you one more using this model. Another key point for me when I'm training people is simply don't do self-evaluation. Yep, don't do self-evaluation. Psychologists call it post-event rumination. You know, when you've done a presentation, you've spoken at a conference, and you then think, I did very bad, or I did really good. I really nailed that. So one of the key points is you just silence the internal critic and wait for feedback. Yep, feedback is how you learn whether you've done a good job or not. So please don't criticize, don't self-judge, don't evaluate yourself. Really important, because I don't think we know how we're going. I don't think we know how we're going. I got invited to speak at a conference about 12 months ago. It was the EA, Executive Assistants, PA, Personal Assistants Conference here in Perth. There was about 250 EA PAs in the room, and I was one of 10 speakers on that day. There was Carlo Callahan, who's the former Director of Police, Commissioner for Police. There was a dietitian for the Olympic athletes. There was a neuroscientist who's on radio all the time talking. There's other high-profile speakers that have got best-selling books, really clever psychiatrists, and little old me. Now, I went on and I did my 30 minutes and I felt terrible. It didn't go how I planned. I made a few mistakes. I mucked up and I went away fairly dejected. And remember, we're not meant to self-evaluate. And 3 days later, I got an email from the conference organizer and they said, "Thank you, Peter. You were rated as the second highest speaker of the 10 speakers on the day. You did a really, really good job. They gave you 9 out of 10. You were only just beaten by one other speaker, a high-profile author for which I cannot compete. Great job, Peter. Great job." So please don't self-evaluate. Don't do post-event rumination. You don't know how you've done. If you think you've done a great job and the audience thought it was a waste of time, then you've bombed. If you think you've been nervous and it didn't go how you hoped and the audience loved you, then you've nailed your presentation. So moving forward, when you're preparing your presentations, when you're delivering, don't do post-event rumination. Don't self-evaluate, do the best you can, let it go, and wait for that feedback from the people who matter, which is the audience. Yeah. You don't know how you're going. Just do the best you can, let it go. And when that feedback comes in, you can change, you can improve, you can take something out if some people found it offensive or not appropriate. You can add something in if people find it lacking. Yep. Don't do self-evaluation. I thought I bombed, but I did okay. So please don't do self-evaluation. If you want to get real good feedback, feedback that matters, make sure you go to the audience. There's a couple of examples of using the storytelling process. 4 steps: make a point, head first, tell the story that creates a visceral response. Reiterate the point, and then put the camera, put the mirror on the audience. Why does it matter for you? How does this help you? How can you help this going forward in your speaking journey? All right. So why tell stories? I mentioned in my introduction, people don't remember what you've said, they remember how you make them feel. So this is why I think this story model is really important, and becoming confident telling stories. And those 2 stories I just told you, then I can polish them, I can make them more impactful. That was just mostly to go through the steps, the 4 steps. But this is why we tell stories. This research comes from Stanford University. If you talk to people, you give them facts, you give them data, give them information, give them a 4-step process. I've given you a 4-step process. Apparently 1 in 10% is going to remember what you've said. That's not a good return on your time, not a good return on your investment. Yep, 9 out of 10 people have walked out of your room, out of your seminar, out of your presentation, and they don't really recall what you have said. This is retention rate after hearing a speaker, a trainer speak. Now, if you add some images, a PowerPoint slide, go to the flip chart, draw something out, maybe you hand around a prop, 52 ways to start your presentation, 52 ways to be more engaging, 10 ways to end your presentation. If you hand around a prop, that's a visual aid. Maybe you show a little YouTube video. You're increasing your retention rate to around 30%. It's a good improvement, but 7 out of 10 people still do not recall what you've said, according to Stanford University. Now, if you tell a story that's engaging, that's creates a visceral response, raises emotion, appeals to the heart, we feel something move in our gut, you're increasing your retention rate to 70-75%. That's why we tell stories. People do not remember much of what you've said. They remember how you make them feel. So the main purpose of a presentation is so at the end of your presentation, people can see light at the end of the tunnel. In their heart, they can feel, yeah, I've got this. It's going to be tough, but in my heart, I know that I've got this. In my gut, I feel that I can now do this. And they may not remember your 4 steps to success. They may not remember your 7 pillars or the 3 strategies to financial freedom. But if you've moved them viscerally, they're going to review their notes. They'll go to your website. They'll pick up the phone and say, hey, I really loved your presentation. I'm going to retire in the next 5 years. I'm really struggling with my financial retirement fund. Your presentation moves me to think I can now do this. I can now bridge that gap in the time I have left. Can you help me? Can you remind me of the 3 things I need to do? Storytelling, really important. It's going to help people remember what you've said. It's how we create visceral responses. And it's going to help the memorability. So one of the things I teach public speaking, there's a whole lot of processes. And this is storytelling. There's how to start, there's how to end, there's how to use PowerPoint effectively. And the biggest impact I have is moving people's belief about themselves and their ability. So they come to my workshops with fear, with trepidation, with self-doubt about public speaking. Now, I share my story, my stutter, my unable to speak, and people walk out and they say, Peter, and they contact me a month later, 3 months later, 2 years later, and they say, Peter, what I remember about your workshop is when I saw what you were doing and your struggle, I knew that I could do this. I knew that I was hiding behind fear, behind self-doubt, but because of your story, I knew I could move forward and become effective at public speaking. So I have a whole host of processes of methodology around structure, around storytelling, around nonverbal communication. And people, if I can shift them in their heart to believe that they can do this, then that is the bigger impact. And this is why we tell stories. Further tips. If content doesn't add to your story, then it takes from the story. So I just used those couple of stories. When I went to a mine site, they turned off the power. When I spoke at a conference and I thought I did poorly, but apparently I was number 2 out of 10, I would polish them a little bit. And what can I take out? What superfluous details do you need? Keep the stories fresh. Both those stories are recent stories for me. I don't do a lot of conference speaking. I do about 1 or 2 a year. This one was just last year. The mine site was earlier this year. So keep your stories fresh and have that signature story. And my signature story is, of course, my struggle with my stutter. A person who was an elective mute for much of his life, chose professions, chose a lifestyle that required not speaking, and then one day decided they needed to change and took on this impossible task of doing public speaking for their living. And how did I get from there, elective mute, severe stutterer, to now being a confident and effective public speaker and trainer? And that is the signature story for me. And as far as I know, I'm probably one of only a handful of people who stutter around the world who teach public speaking. What's your signature story? What are you known for? Just a couple of little tips there. So wrapping up, make a point, tell a story, reiterate the point. And then number 4, make it about the audience. So what? If you want to be able to succeed when things go wrong, be really prepared. If the power goes off, are you still ready to go on? If your time gets cut short, are you still ready to succeed? Can you do it in half an hour instead of 45 minutes? If a speaker doesn't rock up and the organizer says, Peter, can you go from 30 minutes to 45 minutes? Can you do that? I remember the model. So the 4 points: tell a story, make a point, tell a story, highlight the benefit of the story to the people in the room. Why tell stories? Create a visceral response, people remember them, and those few last tips. If it doesn't add to the story, it removes. Keep them fresh and have a signature story, that one that you are known for. That's where I was yesterday and Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday. You can ignore that. Upcoming webinars, go to my website, upcoming webinars in July and also in August. So contact information, I'd welcome any feedback you have. I'm going to end a few minutes early. So remember, storytelling is a skill that we should use in our public speaking. It helps people remember what we've said. It helps us relate to people. And it's that visceral response, that heart, that's going to make the big difference. So I'd like to wish you well on your storytelling. Good luck, and please go out there and change the world, your world, through your public speaking. Bye for now.